Okay, it's 6:06. We'll go ahead and call to the June 4th meeting of the Weld RE5J Board of Education to order. If you have a moment to silence your cell phones, rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Diagana, would you please call roll?
Monica Johnson? Here. Mike Johnson?
Here.
Here. Amy Musgrave? Here. Michael Mayo?
Here. We do need.
Aiden's here too.
Oh.
Aiden Chambers?
And is Annabelle coming? She's on vacation. I know. We got it. We covered it. She's here. All right. We do need to approve this evening's agenda. I entertain a motion.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Proctor to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Oppose? Okay. Do we have any citizen comments on agenda items? All right. We can move on to staff and student celebration recognitions. Superintendent Nielsen.
Thanks, President Wales, board members. The last couple of weeks are big couple of weeks in school as you close down. I want to thank board members, staff for the graduation. It was windy. It was an interesting evening because it was beautiful right up until we walked on the stage, and then the wind kicked up and it quit about the time we were done. So, but that's always a nice celebration of the work that's happened, and celebrate students that have been, many who have been in our district for 13 years. So summer school's underway right now. I did want to call attention to, I didn't say this last time we were together, but we had a chance to go to the FFA banquet. And it was neat to see, really powerful to see the students there sitting much like we are tonight, and in charge of their ceremony. Once they got past dinner and to the awards that night, it's all driven by the students, and students honoring students. It's just powerful to see how the students step up to that and recognize a lot of great things, a lot of adults that have had influences on that program. And so that was a great evening at Roosevelt, and a couple weeks ago, I think that was, but it was a nice thing I hadn't had to celebrate with yet. Tammy and I did have a chance to go to Civica's first graduation. That was this past Tuesday at Ames, and so we got to enjoy that celebration. I think they had a dozen or so students who walked the stage, a nice ceremony, and a nice touch. They had their salutatorian read all the names, so real personal for each of the names. That just felt like a nice touch. Our extended school year for special ed students starts soon, and we have 18 who will participate in that this summer. That's always powerful, I think, for students to extend their learning. And then we'll start to share some results with the board now, and then as we move into August, we'll continue that. We were with all of our leaders yesterday, principals and APs in this room. They spent time looking at some of what they had accomplished throughout this year, which we'll try to wrap up and give as part of the Friday update next week, so you can have some idea of what they celebrations and the way they led their buildings this year. But lots of power in what they were able to talk about as a group yesterday, in consistencies across the district, and also just as we talk about it, how much data is driving the conversation is really neat. And then a couple of things I just want to share tonight in that vein. One of the things the board approves is certifications that we offer in this district. And the certifications we offer in the district some of which are reimbursable. And what the change year over year is, a year ago, we had 249 reimbursable certificates that students earned. And last year, we had a total of 282 combined certificates that were reimbursed and ones that weren't. This year, we had 350 reimbursable certificates and 500 combined. So that's up, in terms of reimbursable, it's up about 40%. But up overall, it almost doubled. So that's a testament to what's going on in the building. And I've said this before, it's also a testament to the facilities, because they do allow us, whether you're talking the culinary spaces or the production spaces, they allow us to do things that we couldn't do at the same magnitude or with the same intentionality that we are today. But I also just want to celebrate that RHS continues to look at ways to allow students to have access. And a certificate is one of those things that you could walk out of Roosevelt, show an employer, and it separates you from someone that maybe doesn't have that. So I just wanted to share that tonight. I think one of the things that's pretty neat, just in the spirit of reimbursable versus not reimbursable, and think about, I'll use ServSafe, for example, which is what we give students that are working with food. And we had a lot of students that worked at the exchange that all had to get what they talk about as a food handler certificate, which is not reimbursable, but they all had it. Many of our students that were in the culinary program had that. In the culinary program, they will work toward ProStart, which for many will happen next year, and that one is reimbursable, but you need those others to get that. So that, again, progression and opportunity continues to expand at both levels. And then work-based learning is another one the board is often interested in. I think we talked a couple of months back that it looked like we would end up with about 80 work-based learning opportunities this year, and that is in fact what we ended up with, was 80, which is impressive for building when we think about 1,200, a little under 1,200 students. It's almost 8%, 7% of our students with a work-based learning option. And typically that's not going to be your freshman or your sophomore. So that continues to grow, and we'll continue to push on that. And then the last thing I just wanted to do with the board was that we have a meeting in 2 weeks, and we will interview candidates, or candidate in this case, for the next board representative. And that person we would interview tonight, make a decision as a board, and if we were to bring that person on, they would start in earnest with our board as we come back in August.
One more celebration.
All right, we have Mr. Luster here tonight for Skills USA, and I believe with a gentleman that manufactured cupboards.
No, he couldn't make it, but this is the president of Skills USA.
Oh, okay.
His name is Skylar Wooliver.
Well, Gary, come on up and celebrate.
Yeah, we should celebrate
Yeah,
this young
okay.
man. So Skills USA, we've been really getting headstrong into it for the last 2 years. The first year we brought 4 kids. This year we brought 9. Skylar was in a crew of 4 that competed in like electrical, plumbing, framing, masonry, and he had to do that, and he's really good at it. But he's the president of Skills USA. We came in 4th, and that was pretty good. We have a student that made it to nationals, but he couldn't be here tonight because he had to work, and his name is Aiden Henry, and he's the treasurer. And Jordan Johnson is in France, and Jordan is our VP, yeah. So I just wanted to celebrate that, because we don't get the opportunity to celebrate these kids. You know, being a coach all my life, they get celebrated all the time. Athletes do, and I think it's well, founded. But if you guys would indulge, Skylar could tell you about the program a little more.
Yeah, please.
Which one?
Skills USA program kind of helps students get into the workforce. It looks good on resumes. At the competition, we did framing, electrical, plumbing. Going up against other schools that I've been in regionals, places. It was real nice to go in there first time, get fourth place. With a little bit of experience, a little bit of practice. My team was really good. Looking forward to going next year. Pushing out harder, getting a better team. More training. We had a little hang up with miscommunication at the actual competition, so hopefully going in and working those out and just getting better as a team.
Skylar, can you talk a little bit about how you communicate when you're there with the team of four?
The team of four is kind of a mess because you have two people that pull it off on you, and it's kind of hard getting the measurements to the people that we need. Some people miscommunicate and get 3 inches off, and that kind of messes it up. But we got to work together as a team to overcome set issues and come up with the triple top plate.
Of the trades you've got to work through or work with, which is your favorite?
General contractor,
So you like doing it all?
all of it.
And what do you see as next for you?
What I see next for me, I've got an internship starting up next week with AP Construction through the Work-Based Learning Program. Hopefully after senior year, I will go full-time with them.
Can I just add something else? Because he won't brag on himself. He worked for AP already for a year, but then he was getting his license and they finished everything and they went to Greeley. And he wasn't quite ready to drive to Greeley without a license. But they still had him on like their payroll, basically. They said, oh, he's still an AP employee. So that was nice. And Skylar is just a wonderful, he could do it all. I honestly believe this, if I walked out of my class for an entire class period, he could run it easily. I've had him for 3 years, I get him one more year, and then he's gonna take off and do that work-based learning stuff, so I don't get him as much, but, he's been a pleasure to have, and I'm just really, really, really proud of him.
It was the club called Skills. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Skills USA, yes.
That's such a great club to be a part of.
It really is.
These are trades you'll be able to utilize the rest of your life, which I'm jealous every day that I don't have those skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
We have 2 female students accepted to go to Women in Construction at CSU, and they are there right now. No, they're leaving Tuesday. Yeah, they're leaving next Tuesday. And it's all paid for, and both of those students, they're more into the, not so much the hands-on as the opposite, and, architecture and things like that, project managing and things like that. So we're proud of them too. Things are growing, we're getting a lot more females, and that's been one of the things that we really, really been pushing, because they're better than the guys with the detail. But yeah, I just wanted to celebrate my school's USA team, and we're gonna let you guys have your meeting.
That's amazing.
The other things that I just want to say to both of you, and I think it dovetails on what Director Johnson just said, right, is you got these skills that you can carry on. What's really cool is that carrying on starts now, right? You get to do that. Karen, you're on AMP's payroll coming out of junior year, and you've been on it for over a year. It sounds like a couple of years if it was when we were still building the school. So just 1 year, but still you're using those skills today. Back in the day when I was in school, there used to be this kind of motto that you had to graduate before you could step out and use your skills to influence the community around you. So kudos to you, and Gary, to you for the program that you run in that building and how you allow authentic learning experiences for students. It's powerful.
That's interesting you said. I always think anybody who grew up in Colorado in the 80s, there used to be this commercial, and it was for like a trade school. But there was a guy who he wanted to get a job at a construction site, and they said, well, you can't. Do you have any experience? And then he would look at the camera and goes, how do I get a job? How do I get experience if I can't get a job to get experience? And I always think of that when I hear about some of the CT programs, and of course the Skills USA is like, yeah, because it was that way. I mean, you couldn't get anything because you didn't have the experience, and now you're such a step ahead of everybody. So, good job.
Well, thank you very much for allowing us to.
You want to come up and shake the board member's hand?
Absolutely.
Maybe like sign up to do a little home improvement for each other.
You can do it.
Congratulations, that's really awesome.
I got some tile work.
Thanks for doing that.
You bet. Thank you very much. Here we go. Good job, boss.
My favorite thing to watch on Instagram is the females that are doing home improvements. They're like, on Instagram. Oh, yeah. They're like, yeah, about this. And it's fascinating.
G Lust is the kids' color.
I think that's also.
Oh, with that hat. Oh, that's good. With the sheds? Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure, yeah. For sure. Okay. Any other celebrations?
No, I think we were all mostly able to attend graduation, so congratulations to all the RHS graduates. And Amanda was smart and brought a hair tie, and I was smart to sit by Nate, who blocked some of the wind. But it was really nice. It was a good job. I feel like we're getting our footing under us for graduation on our new grounds, and I think every year we'll just continue to be. I'm very proud of all of our students, and then I attended, I feel like 50 graduation parties, which was really fun too. So that's all I have for reports today.
What do we do? I think graduation is the biggest one. When my youngest daughter helped volunteer with parking at graduation, and she let me know that the screen and the sound were working well outside of the stadium. So that's good for people who couldn't get close. You could see us. And she really enjoyed I'm going to say their names improperly. There's a couple of gentlemen who work at RHS who were helping with parking. I think their names start with J, like James and John, or James and Josh. Thank you. She really updated their company. She got to ride around in the golf cart with them, and she was very mad they made her wear a safety vest, but thank you for making her wear a safety vest, because I appreciate that with parking.
Was it the one in the back of your car?
No, I didn't. That's what I told her. I was like, well, I texted her and I said, I've got a safety vest in back of the car, go grab it. And she's like, well, they already made me wear one. But I think the parking was really well. Even though there were some people who parked where they probably should not have, but that's beyond our control.
And exiting was so smooth
It
too.
was good this year.
That was just really well planned out. Yeah, it was really well. Yeah.
And we'll get it closer.
We'll get it. Yeah.
Just a couple things. I want to say thank you to the staff, the administrators, the teachers, the custodians who wrapped up the year very well. I know that's a busy time for all of you, and did a good job. So nothing but positive. Graduation, of course, is the culmination of all that. It was a lot of fun. We did great things. The only thing I heard was that it took a while. So, and
You were there?
I was there. And I'm glad to hear that we're working out the kinks with parking and in and out and all that kind of stuff. Because we need to buckle up, because there's about 100 more kids next year that are graduating from Roosevelt, assuming they all make it through. So it's going to be interesting next year to make sure we have that well-oiled machine still pretty well-oiled. So, but no, it was fun. It's good close to the year. Excited for the summer.
I'm sorry I couldn't make it. I couldn't give 2 nurses the day off. So, I'll have to try to get that next year because I have to graduate. So I had to really fight to get that too. So, sorry I missed it. Sounds like it was fabulous. Probably went over on your speech a little bit. I'm sorry I missed it. Congrats to all those kids and everyone who got it.
How many, did you count how many necklaces you ended up with?
About 170, 180.
And at least one feather boa.
And one for boa.
And dollar sign.
What I was interested in is how you got them off. Did you take them all off at once? Or did you have to?
I had to have a DJ guy help me.
A teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Can help me. Yeah,
As they were starting to stack up, I thought, he's not going to get those off. I have pictures.
This is a public.
I mean, just can throw it up on the
Ms.
screen
Chambers,
really fast.
as I search for photos, do you have anything?
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool experience for the reps to be a part of the ceremony for the first time ever. I got to be with one of my friends, their diploma, because they graduated a semester early and they were already like in the online program, so they didn't really have a specific teacher or staff member that they wanted to get their diploma. And so we had coffee that morning actually, and I mentioned that I'd be up there. And they were like, "Give me my diploma?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then I remember sitting there and I see everyone walking up. I'm like, what if I just walk up? So that was a really special moment. I thought that was really cool, and I got to hug some of my close friends after they got their diploma, which was really sweet. And yeah, I probably heard some of the same comments about the ceremony. I thought it was a really good ceremony, other than the timing. So there's some things to discuss later and to do my student rep duties. But other than that, loved it. Yeah, that's all I can really think about.
Well, I thought it was great. I mean, the wind was obviously a petty.
Yeah.
I didn't care about the length actually, because I thought it gave each student the opportunity.
Each student was really celebrated.
Right, it gave them the opportunity to be celebrated. And you know what? When you got 248 kids walking across the stage and you want to celebrate them, it's going to take a little time. So buckle up, Buttercup. That wasn't directed to any of you guys. The only complaint I would have is, so it's always been so awesome to watch the graduates throw their caps in the air as the sun is setting. So if we could move the time a little forward, and I don't know if that's even possible.
You gotta time it just right, Benson.
But we've always seemed to have managed to, the graduates throw their caps when the sun is setting, and you get beautiful Colorado sunsets in the background.
We like magic.
So
Well, we can move it up to 6.
that would be my only.
We might
The only
talk to it then next
I have
time.
two things.
2 hours.
So I don't know when we stopped putting diplomas in the folders. I remember one of my nephews graduating back in early 2000 and at Peterson Field, and they had them all sitting on a table, and the wind came up and blew all the diplomas off, and they were flying in the wind. And so I guess at that point is when they stopped actually putting them in. So by putting them back in this year, you probably invited the wind. That's all I So maybe go back to not putting them in.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, it was great. It really was. I think we were all a little anxious with the when me and Amanda were talking about every student that came up and they were holding their cap, you know.
Yeah. they're
And
just
then somebody
holding
was
their cap.
offering them a hand to shake and a diploma to take. It was like they didn't know how to do that without.
There's a lot happening with each of them. That's part of the runway.
That was part of what.
You gotta like coordinate it all.
But that was good too. And like I said, like you said, it gave each student the opportunity to really celebrate. So hats off for that.
We cut down.
Not blowing off.
Maybe if they choose like a smaller gift for you, instead of like having the,
They were.
We'll think of something fun.
Oh, that's you, yeah.
I won't.
Well, we might have to give her some executive impact.
you could do like random keychains, like just weird keychains.
I feel like it's conspiracy.
But it really was. And please pass that along to everybody who helped put that together, because I can't imagine trying to.
Party for 3,000 of your friends.
Did you get it? Yeah. Did you guys get a gate count? Wow.
I mean, every kid had like 6 tickets or something, right? Oh, really? Oh, my Lord.
What?
Do I even know that many people? Like, I don't even know. Saying.
Hopefully Ashley goes to.
She might.
Wow. All right. We'll move on. If there's nothing else from board members, superintendent's report.
Most of what I had for superintendent report, I put in the celebration, so we're good.
Okay. We'll move on to our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure provide for a consent agenda and several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Most of the items listed on the consent agenda have gone through board review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure a extensive and thorough review. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. You can have.
We have a motion by Director Johnson, a second by Vice President Sassano to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? All right, let's move on to old business. Our first item under old business is the final reading of amendments to board policy DJE. So DJE, I gotta make sure I get these right. Okay, so we got them in the right order. We want to make sure that we approve DJE before we approve DJA, because DJA is going to be contingent on DJ. Not to be confused with DJ Jazzy Jeff. Couldn't think of a good DJ. Jessica, I need your help.
Yes, so I had an amendment I wanted to offer on DJE, and then I also have one for DJA. Because they need to match. On line 2, I think we should take $5,000 down to 25. Then on line 22, strike 25,000, enter 5,000, strike 100,000, enter 25,000. I just think our amounts are too high on this. I think it makes us look like, I don't think this is anyone's intent, but I think it makes us look like we're circumventing the bidding process. I think when we set that threshold that high, we're neglecting our fiscal responsibilities to the district. I think we're setting ourselves up for failure. And the district has a history, just like the town, you know, we've always used the same people. We have some really great, reliable resources. And some of that can be amazing, and it can also be a negative. Maybe we're not looking out, saving our district lots of money. I mean, some of the deals in the past have been handshakes and just moving agreements and things like that. I think we've been working on making our processes better, and I think when we set this threshold that high, I think we're setting ourselves back. It promotes transparency if we lower it to 25. It makes everybody more accountable. And it, again, just displays that we're being fiscally responsible with taxpayer fund. We need to ensure competitive pricing and fairness to keep the district in the clear legally and in the long term, setting us up again for long-term success. No one would ever do this in a private sector or in a personal, like, for example, I remodeled my bathroom. My quotes ranged from $15,000 to $38,000. I mean, those are big amounts of money, and most of this that we're doing, none of us on this board know enough about plumbing or construction stuff. We know if that's a good fit or not. I don't have that knowledge. I need more information. And I think that can be, everyone at these tables needs all the information that we can get to make an educated and the right decision on these items. So that would be my amendment to lower these. I know you guys were thinking about cost. We haven't had the amount that high in the last two policies, and our staff have been able to handle it. We've always had a bidding process. It's been more cumbersome than this, our past two. I mean, I know the past one was very brief, but they were more cumbersome than this is. I'm not worried about a high cost of it. I think it would save us in the long run. It just, we need to be fiscally transparent. And I don't think this is as proposed. I don't know if you want me to say more about DJA or wait.
Yeah, let's wait on that one. I would just push back a little bit by saying one thing is that when we started the bond projects, that was the amount that we set it to, was $100,000.
Okay.
And so we haven't, I mean, similar to a bond project, and we're going to learn later tonight, our budget is, I mean, we have very fixed revenue streams. It's not going to, like a bond project, this is the amount of money we have to work with. We have to go for the best that we can get, the best price we can get every time.
Right.
The same applies, I think, to our budget, and Mr. Evers will probably get into that tonight, talks about our budget. So we're, unlike, a commercial operation or an endeavor, we don't have the opportunity to, if come and wish for better revenues. I mean, we have to make sure that that our spending is in check. One of the things I know you missed the work session when we put all together, we looked at districts all across Colorado, bigger, smaller, generally the same size, and this is kind of where we landed to be in line with them.
I listened to it and I went through, I didn't go through every single one, but we're not every other district. I mean,
I understand that we are unique, and that's something to be proud of. But you talk about there's being issues with how we're currently doing stuff, and that we need to rein that back in. We were having those problems, in your opinion, at a level of $5,000.
well, that's because we weren't following the policy at all.
And probably because it becomes almost difficult to do
I
so.
agree.
And I get it.
Too low.
$25,000, $38,000 is a lot for a homeowner or for a small business, but a district of our size with operating with what is our budget going to be this year?
Almost 50.
$50 million.
I would disagree with that because
It's a-
little things pile up.
I understand
And
that.
it's taxpayer money.
And like I say, I'm offering some of the reasons why we decided to go with the numbers that we went with.
And I think you probably wound up voting for that, but this is my viewpoint on this. I do not think this is right.
Okay. So let's make sure we get this right. Are you formally making a motion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and state your motion.
Amend on line 2, strike 100,000, enter 25,000.
Okay,
Line 22, strike 25,000, enter 5,000, strike 100,000, enter 25,000.
well, I'm sorry, what was that line?
22.
Oh, on the same line. Okay, make sure I got this right. So line 2, 100 to 25. 22, 25 to 5, 100 to 25.
Yes.
Okay, that's it on this one?
That's it.
Okay. So I have a motion by Director Musgrave to amend the proposed changes to DJE. That would be line 2, $100,000 to $25,000. Let me say that differently. Strike $100,000, replace with $25,000. On line 22, strike $25,000, replace with $5,000. And on line 22, strike $100,000 and replace with $25,000. Did you capture that? Okay. Okay. Is there no second? Okay, that motion fails. So we do have all the changes up to date. This is technically the third time this has come before the board in a public hearing. There's no other amendments. I would entertain a motion.
I'm going to adopt the amendments to policy DJE as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Johnson to adopt the changes to policy DJE as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana, would you pull the board?
Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Amanda Proctor,
Yes.
Nate Sassano,
Yes.
Amy Musgrave,
No.
Michael Wales.
Yes. That motion passes, and so DJE is updated. Now we're going to DJA.
So DJA, I don't think we should accept the amended version where the board does not have, it's line 12, 12, 13, and 14. However, any single non-budgeted purchase or expenditure greater than 25,000 shall require advance approval by the board. I don't think we should strike that line, those lines rather, which I know you all think that we should. I will, on the record, I disagree with that.
Do you want that just as a comment, or do you want to make
I mean, I already made my arguments for fiscal responsibility. We've had recent instances where we've made some bad choices as a district, and we're accountable for those choices. And I think we need to know about where our money's going, and we need to vote on it. That's our job. So. So I move that we do not strike the language in red, lines 12 through 14 on GJ.
All right, so we have a motion by Director Musgrave to not strike. How does that read?
Undo that, I know. I didn't know how to say it. Not amended, I guess?
To not strike
Yes.
the following language from line 12. However, any single non-budgeted purchase or expenditure greater than $25,000 should require advance approval by the board. Do I have a second?
I'm going to second it. I want further discussion on it.
Okay. So you have a second by Director Proctor. Discussion.
Yeah, my discussion is, I'm sitting here reading it in rain 1,000 times. And I have a question for you, Michael Everest. In our budget, typically we budget dollars for categories, not specific items per category, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm not sure what would be a non-budgeted expenditure. Like an example of that would be.
That is the question I have.
Okay, and that's why I'm not sure whether I care or not care about the strike or not, because I can't think of a specific what a non-budgeted expenditure would be.
Meaning that, let me hop in there too, because in my mind, we have all those itemized expenses spelled out budget, correct?
They're like categories.
Categories.
Yeah, it's more at a categorical level. So for example, equipment, like capital equipment, like if we're thinking RTUs or, a big item like that. But we have a dollar amount for that, not
Because we don't budget to
a
specific
certain
line
number of
item.
RTUs. I mean, if, for example, if I knew that we needed to replace 5 RTUs in the coming year, I would the dollar amount in for, how much those 5 RTUs are, but it's not 5 RTUs.
Where did the website expenditure fall in that? Was that a, what's the verbiage in it? Non-budgeted purchase?
I didn't hear
expenditure?
you all. I didn't hear it.
Website? Is that a non-budgeted purchase or expenditure?
The district's website.
The district website, the money that we've spent on the website
No.
last year.
That was budgeted.
That was budgeted?
Yeah.
So have we done anything that is non-budgeted?
I mean, again, I don't understand what would trigger this.
Okay,
I
I didn't understand that part, okay.
But I mean, like, for example, the website, for this year, I mean, that was all
How much
budgeted.
did we budget for those?
I can't remember off the top of my head, for that component, it was between, it would have been between 75 to 100, I can't remember exactly how much it was.
Do you just put it to professional services or do you put it somewhere else, Michael?
And that's my biggest beef this year. We blew all that money on the website and we had no oversight over it, but we still have to answer for it. I mean.
But I think we need to stop splitting hairs and just get down to what the real issue is. The issue is you had a problem with the website. Everybody in the district had a problem with the website. Our policy wouldn't have saved us from that. The problem was we hired a vendor who was not capable of doing the work. That's why the website went the way the website did.
Agreed.
Superintendent Nielsen recognized that. There were a lot of people telling him that there was a problem with it. I think everybody sitting at this table and probably everybody sitting out here and everybody who's watching had a problem with it. He has corrected that. Sometimes you get bad vendors, and I don't want to say it was a bad vendor, but the vendor just wasn't ready to do the job that we needed to do. The policy would never save us from that.
Policy, if we would have adopted my amendments would have addressed
How?
that. Because we need to look, we didn't have any bids. We had no bids.
But that vendor has had a portfolio that they showed. I mean, it wasn't somebody they just hired out the corner of the street.
But we didn't take any bids. And
But by taking bids doesn't
I
matter.
would disagree that she had the portfolio to back up what she said she could do. But that's why I think we need to look at it. I think we need to look at each of those. And that's the one I'm using because it's the most recent, not because it's the one everyone knows about.
I can tell you, in the time that I've been involved with the finances of this district, which preceded my time on the board as a member of the DAC, I've seen about $500 million that this district has used. And I've never seen misuse of money. Because it's a limited amount. It's a limited amount.
And we don't want to ever
And
start that.
we had one vendor who could not complete the work that we asked them to do. And we ended that contract, we terminated that contract, and we moved on to a vendor who could. Sometimes that happens. That the amount of money that came to from that $500 million is 0.02%.
I don't care.
That is a minimal amount.
It's taxpayer money.
It
And I don't
is.
think it's probably the
But
only time we haven't.
tying the district's hands
I
from
don't
being
wanna
able
tie
to,
anybody's hands.
but you are when you do this. I mean, that's what this comes down to. Do you want to have a meeting every time they want $6,000?
I didn't say $6,000.
That's how our policy reads right now.
Right.
Do you want to do that?
That's not what I said.
Because you can't do anything in this district for $6,000.
No, you can't. And I didn't say $6,000.
And you probably can't do a whole lot for $25,000 either.
We're responsible for the money in this district.
We're absolutely
And we
responsible
don't
for it.
know.
That's why we have audits every year.
We're not getting bids from proper vendors on any occasion we should. We don't know how much money we're wasting. And that's just my.
I guess I take offense to the word wasting because I don't feel like our budget includes waste. I feel like it includes necessity. And once in a while, a job isn't going to be complete how it's presented to us. And I agree that's not a problem of the policy. That is a mistake from the contracted vendor. Thankfully, that doesn't happen a lot. What if we hired a plumber and we spent the money and the plumbing job didn't get taken care of? We wouldn't change the policy. We would give that job to somebody else to do it. So yeah, I don't like the word mistake because I feel like we're very conscientious our budget and that we work hard to be transparent to our district members. So that overall, I was trying to do the math in my head, but I'm a word girl, not a math girl. But even with the amount that goes to bid, the $100,000, what percentage of that, of a $15 budget is that? Tiny.
It's less than 0.5%.
I knew she could do
It's less
it.
than,
She's a
it's
number
less
girl.
than 20, it's 0.0000.
So yeah, based on our overall budget, when you get it that way, our overall budget based on that $100,000 mark, it really, it is hardly a drop in the bucket, especially.
I respect that viewpoint. I feel like when we spend more than a teacher's salary on something that doesn't work, we need to answer for it. And I just think this gives us more accountability. And I understand your viewpoints. I think that we have a good trust relationship. What if we don't with the next superintendent, something like that. So I think long term this is a mistake, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay. We'll go to DJEA and unstriking that portion. I'm not sure. I still don't think it adds or subtracts value with or without it.
I guess I didn't understand the non-negotiable purchase. I thought that verbiage meant something different.
Okay.
We never actually use non-budgeted purchases. It wouldn't make sense. So I could drop the amendment on that. I do think we should have more accountability as a board and be looking at this stuff, and I understand the rest of the board doesn't, and I respectfully disagree.
See, I think that's an unfair statement. That's why we're here,
I know,
to
but-
provide
but
oversight.
we
We're
don't-
just not going to we're not going to
I
micromanage
think it's
every
micromanaging.
purchase that's being made. I mean, we have a district accountability committee by state law whose job is sure that we're spending money the way we say that we are. We will review the budget tonight so we can see. I mean, have you looked at the budget tonight? Have you reviewed the budget documents?
I did.
Okay, so you're doing that you're asking us to. But now you're saying that the rest of us aren't doing that. And you're,
That's not what I meant.
No, that's
I meant
exactly
we
what
have
you
a
meant.
different Well, my viewpoint on how we should do this is different than yours, and I can respect your viewpoint.
I hope so,
That
because
doesn't- that
the
doesn't
attacks,
mean something wrong.
the little attacks are getting,
I'm sorry.
they're wearying.
Michael. I'm not trying, I'm trying to, just an argument over this. It's not personal, and I'm sorry if you took it that way.
No, I do, we've gone through a month of personal attacks and this,
Well, we can
and it's
disagree on policy.
it's so discouraging when my passions for this district are minimalized to bottom lines.
Well, my passions are different than yours, and that's okay, and I respect you. And I think it's okay that we have a different viewpoint on this. I just want to share mine.
That's fine. I would just ask that you refrain from attacking other board members and the staff, because they may not have the
I
same.
did not feel like I attacked you, and if you felt.
Thank you. Any further discussion on we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
She would withdraw her.
Yeah, I'll just withdraw it. I didn't realize that verbiage
Are you willing to withdraw the second?
was Amanda pointed out.
Yes, I can withdraw a second. I just really wanted to confirm the verbiage of non-budgeted expenditure to make sure that, because I was reading it and just not sure it added or subtracted value from the policy. I didn't mean for it to go crazy.
All right, the motion and the have been withdrawn. I would entertain a motion for the changes to DJA.
I'll motion to adopt board policy DJA as presented.
We have a motion by Director Proctor, a second by Vice President Sassano to adopt the amendments to board policy DJE as presented.
DJA. What's written in board docs is incorrect.
Yes, it is. Do you have the correct motion?
Do you have the correct motion, Jessica?
DJA.
DJA. Yes, that's the correct motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana, would you please pull the board?
Monica Johnson?
Yes.
Amanda Proctor?
Yes.
Nate Sassano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave?
No.
Michael Bell?
Yes. We'll move on to our first item of special business. That is the approval of the 2025-26 student parent handbooks. Superintendent Nielsen.
Thanks, President Wales and board members. Our principals are here tonight. They've been working with their teams to try to update handbooks. Assistant Superintendent Kramer is going to kick things off.
Good evening, President Wales, members of the board, Superintendent Nielsen. As Superintendent Nielsen said, we have our principals here representing each of their buildings. Of course, to answer any questions you might have, in your packet, you'll see that there's summaries for the changes that are made. The elementaries did the same changes together. They worked together on theirs, the elementary schools. And then you'll see in high school there. Two things to note. One is information will be included later about food service since we're not quite completed with that or finalized with that process yet. And then the other will be some changes to attendance. We met today to go over some changes we want to make that we a little more friendly to our families when we're calling and asking about absences. And we want to also make sure we're consistent across all of our buildings. We've heard from parents sometimes that they'll call one school and it'll be used and another school says it's not, and that sort of thing. So we're trying to work through that together to make sure we're being consistent. And that will trigger, just a heads up, that will trigger a board policy update for JH and JHB at some point, once we finalize what we're thinking for the attendance. But that, there's not big changes, but they're changes that will be, we think, really good. So we're all working together to get there. Should be very soon. Good work that we did today. So I will turn it over to you if you have any questions of our principals that are here.
I feel like we're missing a principal.
Just
Just
one.
one, right? Just one?
Yeah,
Alan plays.
Alan is, he's taking a couple of days, and then we'll make up those days when he has to be here when the building is more ready. So doing a little trade there.
That's okay. I just wanted to point out that I'm excited to have another principal.
Yeah. So, any questions?
So, excuse me, the attendance stuff you talked about is not reflected in these documents yet.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's those two things that will change. The food service information and then the attendance. Otherwise, it changes.
I really appreciate you guys doing the education on that. That is the biggest thing I hear this year. We're not all on the same page with attendance.
We had really good discussion today, and really Allie Ham, who has been our lead on truancy and chronic absenteeism, she really brought this forward to say, to propose some better ways to approach some of this. And so we had the initial discussion yesterday in our principal and assistant principals meeting, and then we scheduled another meeting today to continue that discussion. Great. It's going to be good.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Thanks.
Jen, will you refresh my memory about our two different adjusted start times?
So typically the elementaries all started at 8:30, and to accommodate families who are dropping off students at both locations, Milliken Intermediate will start 10 minutes ahead of that at 8:20 and end at 3:20. And Milliken Elementary will start at 8:40 and end at 3:40. So that gives families 20 minutes between drop off and pick up to be able to move between the building. You know what parking lots are like at the end of the day and beginning of the day. That lets them kind of navigate through that and still be able to pick up their younger students after picking up their older ones.
I think that's a really good idea. A really good way to make that work for families with students in both schools.
So two questions. One, Aspen, the last bullet on your changes talk about removing the academic dishonesty section. And I just want to make sure I understand that's because it's already elsewhere in the discipline matrix. Okay, so we're not taking that out. It's already somewhere else. Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that one, Nate?
The last bullet on the middle school talks about removing academic dishonesty section.
Oh.
And I just wanted to make sure I understood that's where it was somewhere else. We're not encouraging academic dishonesty.
Only at one school, yeah. Weird.
And then, Mr. Principal, you, the student parking, it says not updated yet, but will be. Sure. Is that similar to the attendance stuff we're still just kind of working on what the policy will look like?
Yeah, I think there were some first drafts that probably were a little bit too evasive.
Okay.
So we dialed that back.
Can you tell us what you're thinking about student parking? What the policy will look like?
I think it'll be fairly similar. It's just, we're gonna go from placards to stickers.
Okay.
We're kind of redesigning some of the student spots for seniors.
That's why I asked, because I have a senior that's going to ask me when I get home.
It's nothing. It's not a wholesale change on anything.
Okay.
Their spot is still the same. They probably have already purchased their senior. They already purchased, if they chose to, their individual spot.
Just some logistics around how parking.
Yeah, it's just about identifying who's in our. It's more from a safety and security perspective, like who's on our campus, who's coming and who's going, and just trying to get those routes set without requesting more information than we need.
Okay.
As a school.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or discussion? How about from you?
I was just making sure I read everything correctly. Just because I'm curious, what was the city dress code for the elementary school beforehand? Because it talks about like the length of shorts and skirts. Was it like not mid-thigh already? Because it was varied when, I remember it wasn't super clear when I attended primary. I feel like that was like a while ago, but I'm just clarifying something. It was like, I'm just curious.
It's more of a, like it was just kind of made, so we were like, we didn't want it to be so like 3 inches or your fingertips or those kind of things, because you get a kid with really long arms and they can't find any shorts to them. So like, basically it's, we said something about your outerwear should cover your underwear. We don't want to see, there's people who get around that with their toys too, like, so. We just want to make sure they're covered and they look appropriate for school. Trying not to make sure we're fair for both boys, girls, and like just everybody's covered appropriately. And sometimes we have shorts that were really flowy, and then we didn't realize it's perfect if you're maybe doing trap or something, but it's not perfect if you're sitting in the classroom.
Is it the technical fashion lingo?
Yeah.
Flowy?
Sorry, Val. Okay.
And if you look at my book, it's a tiny bit different. It's like the more bullet points. Just try to see what that looks like. If you don't like that format, I'll switch it back.
As long as it says the same thing.
It's the same language. I just went from paragraphs to bullets because I was just trying to.
Can I? Did you get your question?
Yes.
That's okay. Just for us logistically, if we still have changes that need to be made, do we need to approve them tonight, or should we wait until the rest of those changes are done? Is there a reason to do it tonight to get it out to parents, or, I mean, is it harm anything to wait until those all changes are done? That way they don't have to come back to talk to us when that happens. Although I guess, well, I don't know, maybe they will.
Yeah, I think for principals, we felt like allowing you to approve it because they're all gonna walk off contract soon, so not having them come back. If we're able to do attendance in 2 weeks, we'll bring the attendance piece back to the board. But yes, when that's ready, we'll come back and approve that separately. But this lets them move forward with the majority of it. And
It's like they want to have a summer break or something. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
I have one more question for Mr. Benson, and I'm so sorry if you already said this. I was very busy reading everything. For the semester final exam policy, are you able to like give some insight on what exactly?
Sure, we're looking at the term good standing. So the second semester says a senior good standing graduation. And then we circle back with this idea several times as a building in the sense of creating equity in regards to whether you take English 12 or American government first semester, second semester, or that first semester good standing doesn't apply, or the second semester does. So that means if you take it in the second semester, you possibly could opt out of English 12. So we have to get on the same page either way. And what does good standing mean?
Okay.
So we're looking to add some more precise verbiage to good standing. I mean, typically, good standing means on track for graduation, assuming they pass every class. But maybe adding a little bit more precision to our language in that is what we're discussing with the board here. It's surprisingly passionate discussion.
For my future self, where do we store these handbooks at?
So they all have them on their website,
Okay.
so they're available digitally that way.
Okay.
So once they're approved with those changes that we are going to add later, we'll put them on the website.
Okay. Thank you. On the individual websites.
And, yes. And we have them translated.
Oh, okay. Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions or discussion? Good work, guys. Thanks for coming tonight, too. It's nice when you guys can come and answer the questions. We throw stuff at Ms. Kramer, and she's like, I'll have to get back, because it's always the question she doesn't know the answer to.
I'll make a motion to approve the student parent handbook for the 2025-26 school year as presented.
We have a motion by Director Johnson, a second by Director Proctor to approve the student parent handbooks for the 25-26 school year as presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Brianna?
Melissa Johnson,
Yes.
Amanda Proctor,
Yes.
Hank Pisano,
Yes.
Amy Musgrave, Michael Wales.
Yes. Thanks again, guys. And Ms. Kramer.
You're excused. I've always wanted to say that to principals.
Thank you all.
All right, our next item of business is the adoption of the 25-26 Board of Education meeting schedule. Superintendent Nielsen.
Thanks, President Wales. And Board Member Knight, we wanted to bring forward a proposed meeting schedule for starting next and working its way through the 25-26 school year. We tried to take lessons learned from this past year, continuing the 6 o'clock start time, having a workflow much like we had for parts of this year where we have work sessions followed by business meetings. So we're able to talk about at the work session information would be coming to the business meeting, the following meeting. You can see the rhythm here. We start in August with a business meeting. And then for each of the work sessions not established right now, we have them out in buildings, starting with Elwell, second meeting in August, followed by a business meeting back here, Roosevelt, second meeting in September, followed by a business meeting back here, Pioneer Ridge. You can see the rhythm. We get into December, and we have a December 3rd meeting. That CASB conference we typically go to is the following week, so this would allow us to move our meeting back to the first Wednesday. And then we have on here the December 17th, but I think both of my first 2 years, that meeting we haven't needed, but it's on here in case. It really is on here in case we need it for financial reasons, because we, Mr. Everest will need it for something, but we think right now we likely won't.
Certification on the levy usually.
When we get into January, we felt it was important to start with a business meeting again, given we'll likely go a month without. And we put the January 21st a combo, not knowing exactly how things will work walking back. So that one, we're going to do business/work session here at administration. And then a third business meeting, the first one in February, and then to the Milliken Elementary, second in February, followed by a business meeting in March. Given we have, again, that second meeting would be during spring break, so we followed that up with a second business meeting April 1st. We have our last work session, formal work session at Intermediate, April 15th, and then we follow that up with 4 business meetings. We felt this year in May we needed business each meeting. And June just worked out that way. It makes sense given we don't have schools in session during that time anyway. So there's a proposal, given feedback I've heard throughout the year on how things have gone. I think the board likes 6 o'clock time. I think there's a lot that like the option to spend time getting into items that we've been able to do in work sessions this year, not race out of there so we can get to a business meeting that starts an hour after the work session starts. So we try to accommodate both, but also meet the needs of when we feel like the business needs are higher. So love just feedback. If there are things changed, we'd ask you to take action on this in 2 weeks.
Oh, so we're not voting on this?
We're not planning on voting on it tonight. I suppose if it's perfect, we could. We just assumed we'd get some feedback tonight and bring it back in 2 weeks.
I think it looks good. I just had a question, maybe it's not directly related, but will we get at a present or a time coming up soon to do a tour of the as we get construction going on that site?
We can certainly set up tours before we get going. We could set a tour up as soon as the board would like. We could do something late June.
Okay.
Then we can invite board members to come see what it looks like in motion, which is what it is right now. But yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I have 2 comments. One is kind of weird with this, but I do enjoy when we get to go to Roosevelt, when we do student celebrations at some of those bigger moments, because I feel like some of those celebrations, there's just so many people there. And I know we have the fluidity to change the location as we march into that next year, but I want to keep that in mind, that if we're doing a lot of high school celebrations, it's probably just easier to do at the high school. There's more parking.
Yeah.
There's room for people.
Completely agree.
Okay. And then my second question is, I think next year Civica comes up for renewal. Was it 2 or 3 years?
We did a 3-year, I think.
Did we? Okay. I just want to not lose sight that I do think it's important, even on non-renewal years, to be intentional about our relationship with both charter schools. Even if it's, I think in the past you did a job of inviting the board members to training and stuff, but trying to find opportunities so that the first time we're reconnecting isn't the beginning of a negotiation. But I think we can build that in here naturally. I just want to make sure that we're intentional about that.
That's why I think KQA and the years also could be time.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I think this was the only year we hadn't done it, and
We haven't really done it. Yeah.
I don't know why we didn't. Other than I know we switched our schedule around a little bit, so that's a good idea.
No, I was going to say the same thing actually. That we don't have any meetings scheduled either of the charters, so to figure out a way to at least make connections with them. I don't know that we have to schedule them there. If we can, great, but to have some connection, I think is smart.
Amy? You're a teenager, anything with easy. No, this looks good, and I just want to thank you guys. I know when we came in January and talked about going to this work session, business meeting kind of pace, that it was, I know everybody's a little apprehensive about doing it, but I really think it does a good job, because it allows us to, just like the policy, gives us the opportunity to focus our time, not feel pressured to get through, miss a conversation short. Gives it just that much more time to sit in everybody's brain before we have to make a decision on something. I know there's been some miscommunication in the public about that our work sessions are closed sessions, and that's definitely not the case. The public's always going to attend work sessions as well, so they can hear what we're talking about, what we're doing. I want to call out Ms. Diagana, because one of the things that I had talked with her about was kind of keeping track of the things we do through the year. And so like the mill levy certification, I mean, that's always an easy one. We know that we have to do that before the first of the calendar year. But all the other little things that we do that kind of fall inside a certain time frame or need to be done by a certain date, asking her to kind of keep track of those, so we make sure when we get into our agenda planning meetings that we have those top of list. Okay, we know we got to take care of these things in this meeting. And so I appreciate all the hard work working on and doing all this too. So I think it looks good. I
just for the record, I like the 6 o'clock start time a lot. We get out of here a little bit earlier, especially if we have long meetings. So I don't know how everybody else feels, but I like the 6 o'clock start time.
I am on the struggle bus. I'll just be very honest, struggle bus.
Yeah, that part is hard because you have to come from work and you have to depend on what the traffic flow is.
And I have to eat. I'm not gonna be angry at you guys
No.
either. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll start bringing you a peanut butter sandwich.
Huh?
We'll provide
I do appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I
Surely
do
for
like,
Michael's sake.
I do like having the work sessions separate because they did oftentimes feel rushed. We were so set on, we have to end at this time and start our business meeting. So I really like this because it doesn't feel rushed. Feels like we can truly talk about what we need to talk about and work things out as you should in a work session.
I mean, I haven't heard anybody having any, I mean, obviously we do have some flexibility of how we can schedule those meetings and work sessions to celebrate students, but.
So I think you're hinting towards approving it tonight. but
Yeah, I would have no problems
The
approving it
only
tonight.
reason I can see not to approve it tonight is to give the staff a chance to look at, do we schedule one at either Civic or KQA
Okay.
or both? And I don't think we necessarily have to, but if we can, is that worth waiting a couple weeks to see if there's an opportunity?
The only thing I would say, as we looked at work sessions, we were stretching it to get to 6. Because of the pressure, we felt like December, we won't likely have a second meeting. March, we don't have a second. May is, we need both business. I think we certainly could look at how do we pull it off? Do we put our schools on a rotation where we have 6 every year? Do we do a work session / business meeting at there? That would be the option, I think. Would be kind of an old style work session / business meeting where we could have a conversation with them. We could also have a joint, I guess, work session.
I was just kind of thinking of a joint, and we could even do that as a special work session too.
And maybe
We
that's
certainly can play with that and come back if that's something.
Maybe that's the best way to handle this. Take it off the table.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to dig into that.
Just as a comment, I think end up at Roosevelt High School a lot just because of what you talked about, the celebrations and all the things going on. And construction continues to take as long as it's taken in this building. So I wouldn't be opposed to taking that work session off the list at Roosevelt, putting one of the charters in, reworking them so we don't have a work session scheduled at Roosevelt because we'll be there.
Yep.
At the high school, sorry, I keep saying Roosevelt. High school we're talking about. So just a thought.
That's actually a good thought.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's.
Because we'll probably reschedule a few of those too. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll take that feedback, come back, please.
I think C and D are mixed up.
All right, is C and D mixed up?
I think D needs before C. I think you need to approve the agreement before you approve the amendment. I just realized I was sitting here.
Well, the amendment felt like it was prior to
Okay.
approving the round
Okay,
because
all right.
we had it both different directions at one time or the other, so, or
Okay.
remanded.
I'll leave you alone. Go ahead.
Okay. But, so our next item is the amendment to the original Roosevelt High School Development Agreement. Superintendent Nielsen.
I think President Wales, board members, at our last meeting, there was an ask of orders to solidify some of what I talked about last week in terms of planning completion of what was in the original development improvement agreement that we signed with the city of Johnstown in summer of '23. And there were 2 things left outstanding that we had as expectations for the district. One was the Hawk traffic signal system, which was on the original development agreement. And the second was the intersection, which is currently now being filled out as a roundabout. The conversation we had as a board last time was that the work staff had done with staff from the town was they were working on the Hawk system as them taking it off our plate. What we've done in this amendment, you can see is that's what's happened. The town has taken the Hawk system. A lot of credit, I think, goes to staff at the town, and they worked to go out and find grant money to take care of. I think you can see in there, the Hawk system was the bid is $460,000 to put that system in. They have received grant money for 80% of that, and the town will take care of the other $90,000 without asking the district for money. And then the other add in that amendment that the town is asking for is for us to split the sidewalk that goes from north of the railroad tracks out of Clearview, which I think is 15 or 20 from the railroad tracks on the north. And we've already gone close to 15 or 20 feet on the south. We want to close that gap so we don't have a Hawk system that's running across the road, but no sidewalk across the railroad tracks. That feels a little silly. So the town is asking us to split that cost. What that will include is a $25,000 crossing fee to cross the railroad tracks. That's non-disputable. It's the railroad track has that. Every time you cross it, I think already paid it as a district to go under the railroad tracks, and now we have to go over it. So that will be included. The estimates Michael and I have heard from the town is between $50,000 and $75,000 total, but there's no bid on it yet, but that they would ask us to split that cost 50-50. So Michael and I talked to each other about assigning a $50,000 price tag. We think it'll be less than that, but that's what they're asking. So they've taken the Hawk system off. We've got that in writing, which I think was a fair request of the board 2 weeks ago to make sure that solidifies it. And so that's how we've addressed formalizing that, I guess I'd say, conversation we had prior to. And we'd ask the board to take action on that amendment, which would change the original development agreement.
Quick question. And really doesn't have anything to do with, it's just a curiosity question. Once this is approved, how soon would they begin the construction of the sidewalk? Would they try to incorporate that in the roundabout project?
Yes, the town is anxious to work once we've said go with Connell that's on site right now. I think for us, the biggest piece Connell has to get done is getting us in school. And then try to figure out what the sidewalk would cost. If they can do that when they're there, there's benefit to that. And so that's work the town will do once we've said we're good.
And with the
Hawk system, I think they have the grant is in hand. I don't have a good sense of timing on it, but I think as soon as possible, they're working on trying to figure that one out too. But the town has stayed on the Hawk system. And they have money in hand, so that will be as soon as bid and someone to do that.
And the crossing of the rail line, that doesn't require any engineering. I mean, that would be
part of that process for us would be to work with an architect around how to do it. If you look at that, where we stopped, there's quite a grade from railroad tracks down to our sidewalk. So there's going to need to be some architectural work on how to do that and configure it so it's ADA accessible, which both the town and us would need. So that work will have to be part of that process, and that has not been done yet.
The Hawk system is meant for the pedestrian crossing at the roundabout.
No,
the Hawk system is for the railroad crossing.
The Hawk system will actually be north of the railroad tracks to get from neighborhood to neighborhood. Okay. And the Hawk system is really, you think about the stoplights that go in to help pedestrians cross, that's what it is, and that's why it's so expensive. So it'll formalize the crossing, and I don't know exactly how far up from the railroad tracks it is, but in talking to town, right, if we have that there, and we don't have a safe way to get across the railroad tracks, both the town certainly the town, but on some level, we haven't provided that either. So it makes sense to get all that done as soon as we can.
Amanda specifically pushed a lot on the hawk issue. I appreciate that. I'm really excited about this because Scott, you and I talked about it. It's very much needed. We don't have an amount in here. You said it was maybe around $50,000. And then this might be a stupid question, but the town would have ownership of that, correct? Would be responsible for.
The town would have ownership of the Hawk system?
No, I'm sorry. I'm switching over to the Clearview railroad tracks.
Yeah, we would not maintain the sidewalk off of our property.
So they would have all
They're taking care of us.
financial and legal responsibilities. It's the town's. Just because we're paying a portion of it doesn't bind us to anything.
Yeah, no.
Okay, all right. I just.
And one of the things that I think is important, right, is we, as a board, we signed off on that development agreement a couple of years ago with both of those two things, big ticket items in there with no cost. So I think the push from the board was good to solidify. I apologize in working through it, that trying to get us to get the roundabout done, that we weren't able to get a specific dollar amount for the sidewalk. But I do think when we look at the overall benefit to the district, even financially, taking the Hawk system off, the Hawk system is going to cost almost as much we're paying for the roundabout. And the crossing at a normal traffic signal, we were still going to be on the hook for 25% of at the time. So I think what the town has done in this case is they've taken some burden off the district. I know it hasn't felt like that as we've talked about the roundabout, but the overall stretch around Colorado, those two big ticket items, to have them take one off is a big deal to us, I think.
Oh, it is, and I know that didn't get captured very well at our last meeting in the paper or in the commentary around town. I think we're grateful for them understanding the position that we're in, even though we're both taxing entities. We definitely have a different revenue stream, and and we appreciate their ability to work with us and come up with a solution that I think is really going to be good for the area.
And wasn't it Assistant Superintendent in finding that grant money, correct?
Well, it was really the town, and I just supported that.
But from our end, it was.
I was like, she might be a little humble, but we appreciate that too. I mean, finding grants that are accessible, that we can use as a joint partnership. That's a full-time job, is finding and utilizing grants. So that work is very much appreciated.
I think it's the fact that the town decided to go after it made a lot of sense because it was easy to do. It did have benefit because we were together, but the information they needed, Tammy provided, but also she provided the ability to get feedback from students. They asked for feedback from students at Elwell and students at Roosevelt High School. Actually, I think it was families at Elwell and students at Roosevelt. That arrangement was made by Assistant Superintendent Kramer to help with the information that I believe helped them get the grant. I don't think they would have got it without that feedback from families and community members.
All right. Any questions, comments? Well, the sooner we take action, the sooner we start things we need there. I would entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the First Amendment to the Site Development and Improvement Agreement between the Town of Johnstown and Weld RE5G.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Johnson to approve the First Amendment to the Site Development Improvement Agreement for the Town of Johnstown for Roger High School. Roosevelt High School. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana.
I'm scared to try now. What if I mess up? Monica Johnson.
Yes.
Amanda Proctor.
Yes.
Nate Sisson.
Yes.
Amy Musgrave. Michael Wills.
Yes. Our next item is the roundabout IGA with the town of Johnstown. Superintendent Nielsen.
Thanks, President Wales, board members. I think we talked about this a number of times. I think we have fulfilled the ask to help us take action on the intersection agreement so we can approve and allow the town to board. Again, we talked 2 weeks ago that they're obviously moving forward with a roundabout without us approving it, but we'd ask tonight for you to take action and say we're taking our part of it.
Was there any changes to this agreement from the previous agreement?
Yeah, just to transparently, we talked to the town about that, and the hard part about doing any changes here is it changed, because it's between 4 parties, it changed the agreement, which is why we ended up going with the amendment to our development agreement, because that allowed us to get at the pieces that are ours without messing up anybody else's in the 4-person agreement. So that's why we went that direction.
Yeah. I guess the one, and it was Director Proctor who brought it up. This isn't I mean, technically now, no, are you kidding me? It just booted me out. This really isn't an IGA.
No.
It's an ISA, right?
Yeah. It's an intersection agreement. It's not an IGA.
So, okay, because that was one of the, that was.
Because we're not listed as a government in here.
Right. When you brought it up, at the last meeting, how can we have 2 developers entering into an intergovernmental agreement when they're not government entities? Okay. I'm glad that figured it out. Any other questions, discussions?
No. I'm going to make a motion to approve the intersection agreement with the town of Johnstown.
I have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Peter to adopt and approve the intersection agreement with the town of Johnstown. Who did I say?
Which I never mind being Amanda.
I'm sorry.
For the record.
Okay.
It's definitely
For the
Monica.
record.
Any further discussion? Dan, we're running out of motions to be made. I got to get right here. So, Ms. Diagana.
Monica Johnson.
Yes.
Amanda Proctor.
No.
Nate Sisson.
Yes.
Amy Musgrave. Michael Wills.
Yes.
The motion passes 3-2. We'll move on to our next item, which is the discussion of outcome of Food Service Management Company Committee. Mr. Everest, I believe.
Thank you, President Wales, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Nielsen. So tonight, I'd like to just kind of let the board know what the process for the selection of the Food Management Service Company contract, what the outcome of that was, a committee that was assembled in the district. Looking at the second slide, so just an overview of the selection process. All school districts that outsource their food service operations are required to do a formal RFP at least every 5 years. Our district was required to complete this process for the 25-26 school year. CDE is very involved in proscribing and overseeing this process for Colorado school districts. The process is very involved, time sensitive, and time trained. So, a lot of fun. So just basically, just an overview of the timeline. I'm not going to read all of this for you. One thing that I would like to highlight is that on May 8th, RFPs were, submissions were due from vendors, and then we, on May 16th, we actually sent them out to the committee. The reason for that time delay is that myself and Linda Medina, mainly Linda Medina, went through the RFPs and provided different types of summaries. The reason why we did that is I added it up, and I can't remember the exact number, but we got over 1,200 pages in all the RFPs that we got. So there was a lot, a lot of marketing fluff in them. And so then on the 16th, we sent it out. The committee met on the 29th to finish, to review RFPs and finish their scoring. That was completed on June 2nd, and we are looking at the results tonight. So we look at the next slide. So these are just the members for the district committee. And then the people with the stars, not everyone, just kind of with how the process kind of backslid, we kind of lost some people to the summer to be able to complete the process. So the people with the asterisks were the ones who actually turned in their scoring sheets. Looking at the next slide, this is just an overview of the categories and point values. So on the RFP, there were 100 points total. It's prescribed in the process that cost has to be the single most, the most weighted of the categories. And so with us it was, and we had that at 20 points. And then you can look down and see what the other criteria were that the vendors were evaluated on. Looking at slide 6, so these were the point tallies. So Chartwell's had 427, SFE had 388, Sodexo had 437, and Hawker had 381 points. And so looking at the last slide, with the RFP process, the committee selected Sodexo to continue on in their food service operations for the 25-26 school year. This concludes my presentation, and I can answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions?
I'm morbidly curious, what was the 10-point edge? Is there one specific thing?
I don't think it was necessarily any specific thing. I mean, definitely familiarity. There's always kind of in the back of your head with a company that you don't know. It's like, well, will they, they have a nice marketing document, but, how do they actually do it? I mean, Mrs. Medina and I, talked about with, Chartwell's, because, it was close, and it just kind of was from the board that we evaluated that, Chartwell's was definitely cool. And I think that it was just kind of the, that we, just the familiarity with the boat, I think probably gave them an edge. As we have experience with them.
Got it.
I would add to that, having been one that went through the scoring process, when you think about those, there were 5 people that put in the scores of 100 points. So it's 1 or 2 point difference between those two. I haven't gone through it myself. I think there were, like the references people had were quite different in terms of current local references that were, in the state of Colorado versus, and so I think, just speaking for myself, those two came out close for me, just knowing how I walked through that. But when you look at the closeness of those, I think you're talking about 1 or 2 points, or per person. But interestingly enough, you know, Sodexo was number one for almost everybody, just in the way they walked through it. And not everybody on that list had the familiarity that, like, you know, that Linda, who's the budget person setting this whole thing up, who also has to work with them or work with whoever it is. But the food person from, we had our culinary person from both Roosevelt Middle and Roosevelt High School who had opportunities to discuss and talk, and they were in the same spot. So I think maybe that enhances that just a little.
Well, I mean, I definitely, for me at least, the difference between Chartwell's and Sodexo wasn't, because the references that Superintendent Nielsen said, you know, they were, you know, kind of a similar quality. Some of the other vendors, there was one vendor in particular that their references, I think they had one that was dated and it was several years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but then they had other references that weren't even dated. So that just kind of, for me at least, that impacted my scoring on that particular element. So,
Got it, thank you.
you know, just as an example.
Were they all relatively as far as cost, were they all quite comparable?
So there were three that were kind of bunched up together cost-wise. There was like 1 or maybe 2 cents, you know, per meal difference between Sodexo, SFB, and Talker. Chartwell's was they actually had a lower lunch price, but they had a significantly higher breakfast price. So kind of if you look, like, you know, at a student that, you know, would have both breakfast and lunch, I mean, that cost was, I say significant. I mean, over the course of the year, it would be, you know, a significant difference. So, but those three, I mean, they were literally clustered, you know, within a or two of each other. So,
So I don't think I'll be able to hide my disappointment that Sodexo came out on top, because I think the quality that Sodexo offers is not the same not as good as it could be. So I'll just put that out there. My question, I'm going to trust the process, and I'm going to trust the staff that went through the process. My question is, can we see the documentation, the bids, the scoring sheets? You can blind them out if you need to. I don't care who said what. I'm just curious how the process went to get us where we are, so that I can defend it when we get asked.
Yeah.
So if we could get that documentation, Google Doc, whatever, I don't know how it kind of come to us, but just so we can dive in the.
I will share the folder with you because the presentations are all too big to email.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Again, however it needs to come to us is fine, but I just want to be able to defend the process that we chose, because I think it was a process. We had plenty of people. I am curious if the 3 people had turned their score sheets in, if that would have made any difference if they were close.
2 of them I will speak to. One of John from Civica is super happy that he's going to be a part of ours. Didn't know where we went, because the system they've been using out of Denver is cumbersome for families. I think he said they've got to order a month at a time. It's expensive, and it's like airline food. So he's excited to be part of our program no matter where we go. And the principal at KQA wrote a letter in support of one of the vendors, so didn't feel right, and she goes through the score process. So that's why she didn't score. So that's the 2 of them. And then Heather just happened to be gone when it needed to happen, so that's the reason the 3 didn't. But for the 2 charter schools, Linda has been a huge proponent for who we have. So being part of it initially, then when the letter comes through, that's not a good place to go. And again, John is just excited. He's through the roof right now, so he can jump on our plan.
And again, I'm fully supportive of the process that we went through. I'm not going to question that, but I would like to see what went into that.
Yeah.
So.
I don't believe I statused it on the agenda, but we would like to have just a formal, you know, vote from the board, just kind of affirming it, so we can have the contract with Sodexo signed, or start that process.
So is that our next step? And we would have a contract come to us to approve? That
Yes.
After all the negotiations happen?
Well, I mean, we have it. I mean, I have the signature page. I mean, the contract, their proposal basically turns into the contract. And so when I share that out, we'll see that.
So if we take a vote tonight, we're just approving that Sodexo was the
winner.
The winner. We're not doing the contract yet.
Well, so I mean, you definitely don't have to sign it tonight. I mean, we can do that at our next meeting if you'd like to go about it that way.
I don't know. It's like a pretty big contract to sign without having to see.
It seems like, just given the question about looking at stuff, let's be transparent so you can all see it, see the process. You know the committee voted, you can put eyes on it, and we'll bring the contract back for approval 2 weeks.
I mean, if it's helpful to say they're the winner, I'm happy to do that. I personally am happy to do that tonight. But if we need the contract tonight, I don't know that I'm okay with that.
I mean, we haven't even seen it.
I mean, especially consider, I mean, if it were a different food service management company that we were elected, just a matter of time, to begin the process, so that they could formally begin the process of changing over. But I mean, since it's Sodexo, I mean, I don't really anticipate that being a problem.
I would prefer to see.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for all the hard work on that, because I know that one was I got to take a look at that RFP, and it was.
Well, that was just the RFP. You haven't seen the proposal.
Right.
So wait for that.
Is that a 1,200-page document?
Well, between the four, it was 1,200.
Yeah.
So I believe Sodexo's was just over 400.
When you read like 1,000 books a year, you'll be fine.
But
Well,
is it as riveting?
Yeah, and Mrs. Medina and I have talked about that. So when we do this again in 5 years, we've come up with, we've been through it once. And so kind of a way to better streamline the process, to make vendors answer the questions, in a consistent format in the same place so that it's easy to find. Because that was one of the things, looking through the proposals to try to find, okay, so for question number 1, where is question number 1 answered in all 4 of these? So it was in a completely different place and in different ways. So just to get consistency for us, just so that to make it easier on the committee, you can just sit down and compare things side by side much more easily.
That makes sense.
So we have all kinds of ideas for next time in 5 years.
Make sure you write that down so you don't forget.
She has.
Noted.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the food service? Here none, we will move on to our new business. Our only item under new business is the proposed budget for 25-26.
Here's my 6 o'clock storm.
Yeah.
Right on time at 8.
Mr. Evers, sorry.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Wales. So tonight, I'm just going to give you an overview of our 25-26 budget. This was quite a journey this year. Looking at the second slide, so we're budgeting for $55.7 million in total general fund revenue for next year. Out of that, we'll take about $7.1 million in transfers to our district's charter schools, and then $800,000 transfer to the capital reserve fund. So we'll have net general fund revenue of around $48.5 million. Looking at the next slide. So one of the primary drivers, you know, of how much revenue the district will have is our funded pupil count. That's the lion's share of our general fund revenue. For 25-26, we're projecting that the core district will increase student count by 75 students over the current year. We're projecting 3,433.5. Knowledge Quest Academy is projecting an increase of 13 over the current year to 407. And Civica is projecting an increase of 8 to 165. So with these projections, we're looking at the district having just over 4,000 funded pupils at 4,006.5. Looking at the next slide. And so then this goes into the calculation for our total program funding. Right now the state's projection for our per pupil revenue is the $11,308.37. Multiply that by our funded pupil count of 4,006.5, and you arrive at 45.3 million for our total program funding. And then with the total program funding, the core district would get around $38.8 million of that. Knowledge Quest Academy, $4.6 million, and Civica, about $1.8 million of that. Looking at the next slide, so this slide just kind of talks about the state share versus local share. So the funding that we receive from the state versus the funding that we receive from local property taxes for our general fund operations. So in the current tax year, so tax year 25, we had a decrease of about 3.38% from the prior tax year in our assessed valuation. We're budgeting right now for a similar decline in that, and that decline is basically based off of the decline in mineral and the oil and gas portion of the evaluation, which is an extremely large part of our valuation. And you know, as oil and gas is developed, extracted, the value of the land decreases. And so, you know, as well as get older, you know, as well as age, they go down in value. So that's what's happening in our district. So if there is a similar decrease in our assessed valuation for tax year 26, we're looking at, and then I have on the current projection in the 2 prior years. So we're looking at about a local share of about 58% for local share is what we're projecting for this coming year. In tax year 2025, that was just over 63% local share funding. And for tax year 2024, it was almost 74%, almost 3/4. So you can see the local share coming down and the state share portion of our total program funding, you know, rising. So we have that dynamic that we're looking at. Looking at the next slide, overview of our general fund expenditures. We have projected general fund expenditures of $49.3 million. That's an increase of $1.4 million over the current year's supplemental budget. There's principal drivers of our expenditure changes. About $1.4 million is a total increase for staff salaries and benefits that's budgeted for the coming year. Then I broke down the different groups. So $726,000 for certified staff, which get a step and a 1% COLA. I have reserved almost $259,000 for lane changes, certified staff. For our classified staff, they are budgeted to receive a 4.41% COLA with no step for their. And for school administration and then the admin professional technical salary schedule, again, a 4.41% COLA with no step. You know, definitely the salary increases are a significant driver for our expenditures for next year. And then also, another item is we're opening another school building. So that's going to be another, just from a building standpoint, there's going to be utilities, there's going to be upkeep, there's going to be those types of things. We will need some additional building administration and custodial staff, for the new building. The district is working to balance, because we're not going to see a huge increase in the number of elementary kids for the coming year. But but in order to build that elementary capacity, you have to open them at some point. So what the district is doing is we're balancing, between, the current Milliken Elementary and Pioneer Ridge to try to balance, class sizes and teaching staff between those buildings. So we're not anticipating a significant number of new teachers at this point that we would need. So we're, definitely trying to keep our staff costs in line with that. But there will be increases because we're opening another building. Looking at the next slide. So with the current budget, this is what our general fund balance is going to be composed of. What we're budgeting for it to be composed of. So the Tabor Reserve, 1.5 million, long-term contracts, 236,000, non-spendable fund balance, 20,000, Board of Education Reserve, 2.7 million, and no unassigned fund balance, for a projected ending fund balance of 4.4 million. So that's overview of the general fund budget, and then I'm going to take you through the district's other funds, just a high-level summary of the other funds. The first one being food service fund. We're looking at, a budgeted beginning fund balance of about 1.2 million, revenues 2.2 million, expenditures 2.7 million. Projected decrease of 460,000 for a projected ending fund balance of almost 79,000. Of that, $460,000 decrease, we have a $300,000 contingency budgeted in there. So that isn't, that's just kind of a budgeting technique, so that we don't have anything necessarily attached to that, but that's just kind of a safety valve for that. So, really we have plans for a $160,000 increase in that, if you take out the contingency part. Let's see, so, the revenue projections are based off of what we're seeing for 24-25, kind of extending those out.
Real quick, can you remind us how much on the food service fund, how much can we carry in the fund balance?
We can, so we are, when you exceed nine operating months of cash, okay, you need to spend it down.
And what is that? Well, it's probably going to change with the.
Yeah, it changes. Well, and we have been, so this year we have been spending food service money. A significant portion of it is for MIS, to buy, basically to outfit that
storage,
the cafeteria, and the storage.
Okay.
The freezer, cooler, and dry storage part of it. So we have been spending money on that part.
Okay.
So another question about that, not about that, but on this one. In November, there is a ballot measure to increase the thing for the school meals for all, whatever it's called. If that fails, is this 300,000 where we'd make that up?
No, it would be more than 300,000.
Well, I know, but would this be where we start to make that up?
Well, that would be the board's decision to, because as Vice President Sassano said, how the state has a shortfall in the funding for Healthy School Meals for All. The program was significantly more popular than what was initially projected when the original ballot measure passed. The current plan from the state is that we will continue with Healthy School Meals for All for the first, 6 months of the fiscal year, so through December. If the ballot measures to increase funding for the Healthy School Meals for All program passes, then we'll continue on with Healthy School Meals for All. If that additional funding does not come through, then we'll have some decisions that'll need to be made about what we do with that, because basically only there's a lot of things in nutrition services, but one of our schools, actually probably two of our schools, the Milliken schools, we have one this year and we'll have two next year, qualify for the community eligibility program, and that's basically a measure if the free reduced or the direct certification of students rises above a certain, or it is a certain level or above your community eligible program, which basically that will continue on the Healthy School Meals for All. Community CEP schools, community eligibility will continue on because they'll still be able to get that federal funding match. So two of our schools would be able to do that. The board at that point would need to decide if we go back to free reduced for the others, or look at covering costs ourselves, which would be significant. Which would definitely take care of our being over our fund balance.
Yeah. And that's not just a decision not to make, that's every school district in the state.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't pass, if the funding mechanisms don't pass, then every district in the state's going to be looking at this. Okay. Thank you.
So I'm glad you asked that question, because that brings up a question I have, because we talked about, what can you do with that fund balance to spend it down? And I know it's always it's well defined what we can spend that money on. Can we spend that money on student lunches in the form of
I believe we can. That's something that I would need to verify. Okay. But I mean, you need to spend food service money on food service operations.
Right. But I know we said we can't like go above and beyond and create there's some limitations even within food service that we can't. I can't think of a good example right now, but.
Well, I mean, when we talk about.
Create a need though.
Well, when we talked, so for example, there's regulations around, your paid, the paid.
Right.
Paid amounts, you have to, there's a formula and you have to keep raising your paid amount so that, federal assistance federal assistance isn't subsidizing paid meals. Right. So they do a calculation to make sure that, paid meals are sustainable on their own, and that, federal support isn't subsidizing them, for example. So there's many food service programs.
And I think, again, this is kind of off topic of the budget discussion, but anytime, especially with this ballot measure coming up, I think it would be in our best interest to always remind the public that free and reduced lunch has never gone away. That is still an active program, regardless of what Healthy Meals for All, what its future looks like. The federal program is still in existence and still available.
The Healthy School Meals for All program depends on federal funding.
Right.
In order to make it sustainable. At the level of funding that was originally set for it. It depends on federal funding. I think I mentioned in an earlier meeting that basically the state funding that we get, primarily through Healthy School Meals for All, it's very close to the federal funding that we get for it. So, and that used to not be the case. State funding was significantly less than federal funding.
Yeah.
And that difference was made up by paid meals.
Okay. All right, sorry I derailed us on, the food service fund is always, to me, is like one of the most confusing and intricate funds that we have in the district. But I don't really pay that close attention to numbers, so.
It's a world unto itself. And that's why we have Mrs. Medina as our food service coordinator.
Right.
So moving on to our grants fund. So, this fund is just where we compile all of the state, local, and fed grants that the district receives. Currently, based off of current projections, we're looking at grant funding for the district at around 2.4, 2.5 million for next year. As the district gets additional grants, throughout the year, which we typically do, then
I think our front door is still open out there too. Might be worth sending somebody out there to close it.
But this budget will be, adjusted throughout the year, and then I'll ask the board to, officially ratify that. But right now we're looking at about 2.4 million in local, state, and federal grants. That's a decrease of 588,000 current year. A lot of that is just kind of the expiration of our ESSER grants, the pandemic grants. So it's getting back down to a more normal level for us. Looking at student activities fund, projecting a beginning fund balance of 690,000, revenues of about 1.6 million, expenditures of about 1.7 million. Looking at a decrease of around 144,000 for an ending fund balance of 546,000. And again, these numbers are based off of, performance from the current year, kind of extrapolating the current performance, to an annual for our student activities fund. And with the student activities fund, finance department, we look at each individual activity fund. So like each club, or like if you're in elementary, each grade, we look at them individually and we flag ones that have overspent, and then there's a correction process that we go through for that. Either the school kicks in money, or where they have to do a fundraiser. So I don't budget at the individual club level, but we monitor the spending and the balances in individual clubs to make sure that no one's overspent. Our bond redemption fund, this is the easy one. So projecting a beginning fund balance of about 22 million, revenues of 12.3 million, expenditures of 10.1 million, increase in fund balance of about 1 million for a projected ending fund balance of about 24.2 million. This fund, like I said, is real easy. It's basically just look at our payment schedules, look at what the community passed for revenue for this fund, for general obligation debt fund. This one's real easy. And this fund also does have a $500,000 contingency built into it. Looking at our building fund, projecting a beginning fund balance of about 334,000, rev about 13,000, expenditures of 347,000, ending balance 0. This, expenditures for the coming year for this will just be just some cleanup things, mainly for RMS. That's the most recent project that's been completed. And then also, having a reserve in there for, having to pay, from the excess interest that was earned on the cash that we had in the fund, that we have to pay back due to these being, tax deductible bonds, non-tax bonds. So there's regulations around how much interest you can earn on that, and we're reserving for that. So not a lot of activity in the building fund for the coming year. Looking at our capital reserve fund, an overall projected beginning fund balance of about 3.4 million, total revenues of about 1.2 million, expenditures 2.4 million, budgeted decrease of about 1.2 million, projected ending fund balance about 0.2 million. This fund is kind of divided into two. We have the kind of our general capital reserve fund. And then within the capital reserve fund, we have our cash in lieu that's in there. So I have the projected ending balances, fund balances for the capital reserve fund and for the cash in lieu component of that. As you can see, the capital reserve fund is essentially $881. And then the cash in lieu fund, about 2.2 million. One recommendation that I will have as we move forward is that we definitely need to consider rebuilding the capital reserve fund, the general fund balance in the capital reserve fund, not counting the cash in lieu.
Glad you said it because I was going to.
Okay. And Superintendent Nielsen and I have talked about that, and I talk about it to anyone who will listen. So, but yeah, this is one area that, in order to support the salary increases from prior years, that we haven't directly. It's just I haven't been backfilling capital reserve money into it, so that fund balance has continued to go down. So I would definitely be a proponent of reversing that trend.
Yeah, I think if we pick up any extra kids or find any savings somewhere, that when we do the supplemental, we really should backfill that fund.
I would be completely supportive of that.
Yeah.
I think we have to. If we don't, it puts us on the path. And I realize it's 50 years in the future, but it puts us on the path where we were with Leffler. Right? We can't do that again. So
disagree.
I understand we're supporting staff increases. I want to do that. I get that. But long term, we have to rebuild that fund.
And to speak to those concerns, Vice President Susano, the district we don't have a preventative maintenance contract on the new middle school building yet, but that's because it was kind of a mid-year. We're kind of doing time and materials on that this year. But all of our other buildings, the mechanical systems, we have preventative maintenance agreements with them. So we definitely don't want to continue, we definitely don't want to get into the position we were with Leffler, where the building was falling apart.
Preventative maintenance is part of the reason we were there, but it's not the only reason we were there. A lot of it was we couldn't keep up, even with the preventative maintenance. So again, I hear you. Having this fund is important, but long term, we've got to get it back to where it was. So
Yeah.
We're on the same page. I get it.
Thank you.
So for this year, we'll have we will have an ending balance of 881.
Yeah, essentially zero. Also out of this fund, we pay, any certificates of participation, the loan, the construction loan that we're taking out for the MIS building and for the PRE playground, that gets paid out of this fund. There's a lot of financing stuff that comes out of the fund right now.
Could I $880 to build a queso fountain for this room?
It's already budgeted.
Not for next year, it's not.
What? What's happening?
So, this concludes my, overview presentation of the budget, and I can answer any questions that you have.
So you'll bring this back,
Next
in
meeting,
2 weeks,
yeah, for your formal,
approval or adoption?
Scott, can you remind me to get to the 4 I'm gonna round up 4.2% for salary increases. Can you remind me what the trade-off to get there was?
We paused the curriculum adoption. We have a couple positions, the backfill for Tiffany at Elwell and Molly at Piney Ridge. Those are paused. Those are positions we probably will need to look at when we adopt curriculum, but so that, there was a cut in hall monitor at Roosevelt High School. One of the things we did last week was to take a look at the changes in staff out versus staff in. And I think that was a decent chunk of money that we were able to realize through that process. That was something the teachers talked about when they were in front of us 2 weeks ago or whatever. So that was a chunk of money.
And those are actual, I mean, the budget process or the negotiation process drug on so long this year, we actually knew who was replacing who.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's actual savings. That isn't.
That's not projection.
It's not a projection. It's, you had a person that was salary schedule, and they're being replaced with a person that's here on salary schedule, so.
And that was a big deal when we were able to realize some of that and
That was a significant.
look at individuals. And it's why I think we just talked as a group of leaders today that our pools were good, but we also hired some earlier career teachers, which I'm a firm believer that what we did last year helped us. Having $50,000 as a beginning salary means more beginning teachers look at us, and that actually helps us in that differential that Michael just talked about. So that was a big chunk, probably helped us close the deal.
We also minimized or cut departments and
That's
school
right.
budgets.
Yeah, we did.
That's your queso pound.
Yeah. The queso budget. But the school's discretionary budget we reduced by 10%. So there were a number of things we did to get to this level.
Yeah, I hope a lot of those things were one time, because I just think asking people to cut corners isn't sustainable over the long term. Cutting curriculum isn't sustainable over the long term. Always have that staffing change of people leaving and coming in. That's always going to be there. But some of those other things, I just want to make sure that it doesn't start to affect the culture of the buildings by always feeling like you can't throw paper, you got to use a second side, like those silly things, because they feel like there isn't monies for that, where we can't celebrate you with a lunch, but we can buy you nuts. And those are good things, but it just is different culturally. So I just want to make sure those aren't our long-term objectives.
Yeah.
So representing all the people, all of our stakeholders that, like me, do not deal in budgets on an everyday basis, will you just break down, I've seen how our goal is to build that capital reserve fund balance, but how do we do that?
So.
Is that a loaded question?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's easy. Conceptually, it's easy. We have to spend less and save more. Because I mean, that's basically when you build up fund balance, you're saving.
It's your savings.
That's fund balance. You create fund balance by having more revenues than expenditures. And then it falls to fund balance. And then the reverse, if you have fewer revenues and more expenditures, then you take out of fund balance. So, we'll just, going in, looking at supplemental budget as Director Proctor talked about, looking at the budgets for 26-7, we're just going to have to be very, in my opinion, and I think Superintendent Nielsen also agrees, we're just gonna have to be very specific in the investments that we make going forward.
Is that an achievable goal? Seeing where we're kind of almost at zero, is that something feasibly we can do, is to build that fund?
Yes, I believe it is. We're just going to have to make those investments. You know, we're gonna have to shift investments. You know, where we're investing money, we're going to need to pause those or slow those down so that more money left over to, you know, the fault of the bottom line that falls into fund balance.
One of the things I think that plays into what we heard from Director Proctor that we committed to for the board, but also for buildings, is what does our student count look like? So Director Proctor, you're going to see our student count before December, even though it's preliminary, but we want to be transparent about what does it look like.
You gotta wait
What do we
Christmas.
see?
I know, why always have to wait so long?
Um,
Michael did it.
Well, it's not final till then, so.
I know.
Not concerned, but in the spirit of some of the work we did around class size, we want to be transparent about what sizes look like and so we can actually see what's in our district. And I think the prioritization of student count over 75 is going to be important for us. And I think the board, we heard an idea already here, because we walked through that and you get a chance to see what it looks like. That's a conversation we should continue to have.
Okay, the doomsday question is, what if we don't get a 75 student increase?
So, which I'm in negotiations, I'm sure everyone's very tired of me saying that, you know, we're not guaranteed 75, we're guaranteed 50. We're not guaranteed the number that we have this year.
We're not guaranteed a pop number.
Right.
No. You know, dovetailing on what Superintendent Nielsen said, I mean, I have a relatively high degree of confidence in the 75. Just kind of based on kind of past performance and where things are looking, you know, right now. To answer your question, we will have to cross that bridge when it comes to it. I mean, potentially, and I don't want to speculate. I don't want to speculate as to what that might be at this point. I think it might lead to consternation.
And lack of sleep and mental capacity.
Yeah, just let me be the one that has a lack of sleep at this point. So.
I do think that question, though, I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago, right? And we've grown a little since then. I think we had a conversation yesterday, and we've got individuals that are pretty in tune with where they are right now. Our middle school is up over 40 kids, 46 kids. So, and that feels pretty solid, just the way the middle school operates. We've got a high school that's up, I can't remember what Dave or Chad yesterday, over 130 kids or 125 kids. And we know they shrink, but if they shrunk by half, between those two buildings, it's over 100 kids. So you have to make assumptions when you walk through that. There is nothing guaranteed. But I think we gotta pay attention. That's one of the reasons we want to be transparent of where we are, not just with the board, but with our teachers. So that's something we've committed to doing, is as part of that CFO report monthly, you'll see where we are with student count, because it's such a big part of the budget.
Okay, any other questions? So we won't take action on this tonight because we'll get the finalized version in 2 weeks.
Oh, I won't be able to sleep.
Well, thank you again for everything you do, Mr. Everest, for this district. And
It's a lot of work. It's a work. Yeah.
I'm sure it is. I've said it. I've told many times. When I come through here on a Sunday or a early Wednesday morning, there's always one car in the parking lot and it's yours. Are you paying us rent? Sleeping quarters?
I have been asked that, and I'm resisting that at this point. So.
That's a side benefit.
Since I don't actually sleep here, so.
Well, we appreciate it, that's for sure.
Thank you, President.
All right, do we have any citizen comments on general topics? Okay.
Can we take a break before the executive session?
We will, when we clear everything up. So yeah, we do need to convene into an executive session to discuss the following, pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-4024H, for purposes of discussing matters regarding an appeal of the decision to expel a student where public disclosure would adversely affect the persons involved, pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 246-4024G, for the purposes of considering documents related to the student expulsion appeal that are protected under the mandatory non-disclosure provision of the Colorado Open Records Act, which is Colorado Revised Statute 24-72-2043A1, and pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-4024B, for the purposes of conferring with the board's attorney, receive legal advice on the process and procedure related to the appeal decision to expel a student. Having said all that, do I have a motion to go executive session for those issues?
So moved.
We have a motion by Vice President Sano.
Second.
We have a second by Director Proctor. Any discussion? Ms. Diagano, would you please pull the board?
Johnson? Yes. Amanda Proctor?
Yes.
Nate Fasano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave? Michael Wales?
Yes. And so we will move into executive session. We will have business to conduct following that. So we will take a recess from the general session. We'll move into executive session. We'll come back out of the executive sessions and reconvene the general session to finalize our action. So going into this executive session, we will have the Board of Education, Superintendent Nielsen, our counsel, Melissa Barber from Kaplan and Ernest, the school principal, the student, and the parents involved in the expulsion appeal. Ms. Kramer, are you going to be joining us as well? Okay. So I have Assistant Superintendent Kramer joining us as well. Ms. Diagana will join us. Oh, okay, I'll get to hers. Ms. Diagana will join us to make sure the recordings are operational, then she will leave. And then, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Guardian ad litem for the student.
Okay. With all that, we'll go ahead and recess the general session. Let's take Or, we're not waiting for her? Oh, we're fine. We can go. It's not crucial. Okay, it is 9:51 PM. We are reconvening the public session. We only have one other item here, and that is to review and take action on the superintendent's expulsion of a student. So we did just come out of an executive session, and I do have a motion that I'd like to read. So I move to affirm the superintendent's April 25th, 2025 decision that a student at Roosevelt Middle School be expelled from Moldari 5J School District, but modify the term of the expulsion to end on December 31st, 2025. And that the board adopt the determination of appeal and order of expulsion as presented, and that the board secretary be directed to serve the determination and order on the student and the student's parents via hand delivery or certified mail, return receipt requested. In addition, the board encourages the district administration to explore all our alternative learning options to support the student's engagement and his re-entry into the school district at the start of second semester.
Second.
You're not, sorry. Motion by myself, a second by Vice President Sassano. Any further discussion? Ms. Diagana, would you please pull the board?
Monica Johnson,
Yes.
Amanda Proctor,
Yes.
Nate Fasano,
Yes.
Amy Musgrave, Michael Wynn.
Yes. And so we'll have that order signed and delivered. Anything else for the good of the board? Hearing none, we'll adjourn at 9:53 PM. Thank you, everybody. Long and productive night.
Yeah.
Randy, thanks for being here.
Huh?
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Took a break at a good time. Let me go at least call my kids and tell them good night.
Michael, do I need to sign that cup?
No, the one she has. Or is that the one she just brought you?
Yeah, here, I don't know. We guess we'll have 4 copies.
Do you want to sign this one?
Is it Jessica? Is this the one we need to sign?
Yes.